Good morning and welcome to the Huddle. We've established that name. We hope it sticks. I'm Vahe Gregorian, Blair Kerkhoff on my left, Sam Mellinger on my right. Did bring a little prop today. Last week we opened the show with a little glance at the brackets. You'll see this is my bracket. I had my wife sign it just to make sure it was notarized properly so nobody could doubt how great it was. I think you know what's going to happen next. That's all done. Could have done it a couple hours into the tournament. I bet Jayhawk fans are doing something like that now, Blair. What are they thinking in Lawrence, and what does this loss say, not just about 2 years in a row losing the first weekend, but is there a little flux in the trajectory of where Kansas is right now?
Well, maybe. First of all, 2.5 hours into the tournament, my bracket was busted because Notre Dame played the first game and Iowa State played the second game of the NCAA Tournament, and the Cyclones, of course, were out by 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Thursday. Bracket busted.
Final 14?
Final four, yeah. Final 14 for the Cyclones.
No.
But
This is dumb, but this is actually the first year of my life that I've been doing well. I think I'm tied for fourth in my brother-in-law's bracket of like 100 people.
It almost seems like we set you up. Okay.
didn't take Big 12 teams.
Eat it, fellas. No, yeah, I did not.
Stayed away from the Big 12. Good call.
Yeah, in the bracket, I did not.
But one of those Big 12 teams was Kansas, going down in the third round, second game, and for the second straight year, a loss in this round. And you know which one was more egregious. I don't. Their first weekend losses, and that's not Kansas. That's un-Kansas-like. And the quick takeaway to me was sitting there watching the game. Wichita State's experience played a big factor in this game, and I got thinking about the last two very successful Kansas teams, the 08 championship team and the 12 Final Four team, both very senior and junior dominated. And that was Wichita State was like that. Their makeup was more like the Kansas teams of those years. So I think that played a big factor in the game, and they just dominated the second half.
Well, this makes me think a little bit of your column, but also a little bit of the bigger picture beyond that too, which is they weren't cohesive. They weren't really tough. It didn't really seem like they were going to have any answer to Wichita State once Wichita State got up. You could see that coming from the last 15 minutes on. And I wonder, to what Blair spoke of too, how much is it that Kansas is in this kind of blessing burden of they got to grab the one and done guys, but it does sort of throw off the universe a little too.
Yeah, it means that you have to coach differently and approach differently a little bit. But I don't think the answer is to stop recruiting the best players in the country. I don't think that's the way to win. And the other thing I thought about that game the other day was we are well past the point where like losing to Wichita State in the NCAA tournament is a shame or anything that anybody should feel bad about. I thought it was a 50-50 game. Vegas actually had Wichita as a slight favorite just before tip-off, but you can't lose like that. That was a back down from a fight, and I just thought of this: what if we weren't so tied into type and of Kansas being the program with the $50 million coach and Wichita is the little upstart and all that stuff? What if that was reversed? Wouldn't the story be that Kansas came out plucky to try to beat the power of Wichita, and then once Wichita woke up, they just slapped them down and dominated the rest of the game? That's what we'd all be talking about, because that's how that game played out. And after seeing that, especially that last 25 minutes, where I think Wichita State scored 62 points in those 25 minutes after scoring, I think, 16 in the first 15, which is just amazing. I feel stupid for thinking it was a 50-50 game.
Well, I sort of felt like that too, and that takes us back to Wichita State, really disciplined, smart, veteran, and you look at the impact of those guards, you look at the energy they play with. I don't know that they could beat Kentucky, but I sure think they've got a good chance to beat Notre Dame and get to that game, and that would be a nice matchup.
Well, unless they're emotionally drained from Kansas, unless they make the Kansas victory, that was their statement in the NCAA tournament. They saw the bracket when it was announced Sunday. They had the collision course with Kansas. They accomplished their goal. I hope that's not the case for Wichita. I hope that's not and I don't think it will. I think we all think so much of Gregg Marshall as a coach that he'll have that team ready to play Notre Dame. Notre Dame is it's an offensive-minded team. There's a lot of finesse with Notre Dame, and I think that actually plays into Wichita State's hands, the play angry mantra of the Shockers. So I think it's a good matchup for Wichita State, and it really would be some just dessert if Wichita State got to play Kentucky again after the last year. And you mentioned it, Sam. where Wichita State is a program, Final Four 2 years ago, 35-0 last year. They're at 30 or 31 victories this year. It's a great program they're having a fantastic run.
Well, and somebody's calling from Wichita State.
They
apparently.
are, and I think that's Gregg Marshall on the line right now.
But speaking of Gregg Marshall, I was going to ask both you guys about that too. In my mind, Gregg Marshall is a guy who's probably not the guy you see staying at Wichita State the rest of his career, but it's going to take a mountain to move him, and that mountain's going to be a matrix of the right money. It's either going to be incredible money at a lesser program or the right money at a blue blood. And I don't think things like Alabama offering him, $3 million plus, I don't think that moves the needle at all for Gregg Marshall. I don't think he's listening to that stuff now anyway.
Yeah, I think that, I don't know if I'm drawing a connection where there isn't one, but I think Mark Few has proved that you can have a power, you can win, that can be you can make a great job out of anywhere. And I think Marshall is absolutely to the point where he doesn't need to go chase a job. He can be extremely picky. And the Alabama thing, depending on what sort of level of commitment they're willing to give to their basketball program, I don't know. Maybe that could be a new power. The SEC is to be had. After Kentucky, it's a pretty wide open league. But I think that Texas job, it makes a lot of sense. If he can get past the biggest thing in Wichita, and then you'd go to Texas and you'd be behind football, spring football, and football recruiting. If you can get by that, I think Texas is a wonderful job if they were to move on from Rick Barnes, because it's national championship possibilities without national championship demands. I think it'd be great.
Well, and that's what Alabama would be too. I mean,
Yeah.
that would be Texas. You're definitely the second banana there. But there is a little pressure on Alabama now that Mississippi State has hired Ben Howland.
Right,
That was a
right.
splash hire. And I think Alabama, if you're Alabama, you see that and say we got to do better than that. And I thought that was a great hire for Mississippi State.
It is a good hire.
But Sam's right. Gregg Marshall can pick his job. He can pick his job. And if Alabama, if he doesn't have some secret desire to be the Alabama coach,
Right.
then I don't see him taking this one.
Well, thanks a lot for joining us. We're out of time. I know you like us to ramble on, but we're going to reel ourselves in, and we'll talk to you next week. Thanks for being with us.